I'm reading the book by Howard Marks. The title is called Mastering the Market Cycle, Getting the Odds on Your Side. Introduction. 7 years ago, I wrote a book called The Most Important Thing, Uncommon Sense for the Thoughtful Investor, regarding where investors should direct their greatest attention. In it, I said the most important thing is being attentive to cycles. The truth, however, is that I applied the label the most important thing to 19 other things as well. There's no single most important thing in investing. Every one of the 20 elements I discussed in the most important thing is absolutely essential for anyone who wishes to be a successful investor. Vince Lombardi, the legendary coach for the Green Bay Packers, is famous for having said, "Winning isn't everything. It's the only thing." I have never been able to figure out what Lombardi actually meant by that statement, but there is no doubt he considered winning the most important thing. Likewise, I cannot say understanding of cycles is everything in investing, or the only thing. But for me, it's certainly right near the top of the list. Most of the great investors I have known over the years have had an exceptional sense for how cycles work in general and where we stand in the current one. That sense permits them to do a superior job of positioning portfolios for what lies ahead. Good cycle timing combined with effective investment approach and the involvement of exceptional people has accounted for the vast bulk of the success of my firm, Oaktree Capital Management. It's for that reason, and because I find something particularly intriguing about the fluctuations of cycles, and because where we stand in the cycle is one of the things my clients ask about most, and finally because so little has been written about the essential nature of cycles, that I decided to follow the most important thing with a book devoted entirely to exploration of cycles. I hope you will find it of use. Some patterns and events recur regularly in our environment, influencing our behavior and our lives. The winter is colder and snowier than the summer, and the daytime is lighter than the night. Thus, we plan ski trips for the winter and sailing trips for the summer, and our work and recreation for the daytime and our sleeping at night. We turn on the lights as evening draws nigh and turn them off when we go to bed. We unpack our warm coats as the winter approaches and our bathing suits for the summer. Well, some people swim in the ocean in winter for exhilaration, and some elect to work the night shift to free up their days. The vast majority of us follow the normal circadian patterns, making everyday life easier. We humans use our ability to recognize and understand patterns to make our decisions easier, increase benefits, and avoid pain. Importantly, we depend on our knowledge of recurring patterns so we won't have to reconsider every decision from scratch. We know hurricanes are more likely in September, so we avoided the Caribbean at the time of the year. We New Yorkers schedule our visits to Miami and Phoenix for the winter months. when the temperature differential is positive, not a negative. And when we do that, we don't have to wake each day in January and decide anew whether to dress for warmth or cold. Economies, companies, and the markets also operate pursuant to patterns. Some of these patterns are commonly called cycles. They arise from naturally occurring phenomena, but importantly also from the ups and downs of human psychology and from the resultant human behavior. Because human psychology and behavior play such a big part in creating them, these cycles aren't as regular as the cycles of a clock and a calendar, but they still gave rise to better and worse times for certain actions, and they can profoundly affect investors. If we pay attention to cycles, we can come out ahead. If we study past cycles, understand their origins and import, and keep alert for the next one, we don't have to reinvent the wheel in order to understand every investment environment anew. And we have less of a chance of being blindsided by events. We can master these recurring patterns for our betterment. It's my primary message that we should pay attention to cycles. Perhaps I should say listen to them. Dictionary.com supplies two closely related but distinct definitions for the word listen. The first is to attend closely for the purpose of hearing. The second is to heed. Both definitions are relevant to what I'm writing about. In order to properly position a portfolio for what's going on in the environment and for what that implies regarding the future of the markets, the investor has to maintain a high level of attention. Events happen equally to everyone who is operating in a given environment. But not everyone listens to them equally in the sense of paying attention, being aware of them, and thus potentially figuring out their import. And certainly not everyone heeds equally. By heed, I mean obey, bear in mind, be guided by, or take to heart. Or in other words, to absorb a lesson and follow its dictates. Perhaps I can better convey this heeding sense for listening by listing their antonyms: ignore, disregard, discount, reject, overlook, neglect, shun, flout, disobey, tune out, turn a deaf ear to, or be inattentive to. Invariably, investors who disregard where they stand in cycles are bound to suffer serious consequences. In order to get the most out of this book and do the best job of dealing with the cycles, an investor has to learn to recognize the cycles, assess them, look for the instructions they imply, and do what they tell him to do. See the author's note below regarding my use of male pronouns. If an investor listens in this sense, he will be able to convert cycles from a wild, uncontrollable force that wreaks havoc into a phenomena that can be understood and taken advantage of, a win that can be mined for significant outperformance. A winning investment philosophy can be created only through the combination of a number of essential elements. A technical education in accounting, finance, and economics provides the foundation necessary but far from sufficient. A view on how markets work is important. You should have one before you set out to invest, but it must be added to, questioned, refined, and reshaped as you proceed. Those are the first 2 points. The third point, some of your initial views will come from what you have heard, you have read. So reading is an essential building block. Continuing to read will enable you to increase the efficacy of your approach, both embracing those ideas you find appealing and discarding those you don't. Importantly, it's great to read outside the strict boundaries of investing. Legendary investor Charlie Munger often points to the benefits of reading broadly. History and processes in other fields can add greatly to effective investment approaches and decisions. Exchanging ideas will fellow investor can be an invaluable source of growth. Given the non-scientific nature of investing, there is no such thing as being finished with your learning, and no individual has a monopoly on insight. Investing can be solitary, but I think those who practice it in solitude are missing a lot, both intellectually and interpersonally. Finally, there really is no substitute for experience. Every year, I have come to view investing differently, and every cycle I have lived through has taught me something about how to cope with the next one. I recommend a long career and see no reason to stop anything soon. Writing my books has given me a wonderful vehicle for acknowledging the people who have contributed to my investment insight and the texture of my working life. So there are a lot of people to thank. I also want to thank many people who played important parts in this book's creation. My talented editor, whatever, those people. Since knowledge is accumulative, but we never know it all, I look forward to learning more in the years ahead. In investing, there is nothing that always works, since the environment is always changing, and the investor's efforts to respond to the environment cause it to change further. Thus, I hope to know things in the future that I don't know now, and I look forward to sharing them in memos and books yet to come. That's the end of introduction.